I want to start with the title, Why Diets Fail. And honestly, that's exactly how I feel about a lot of diets. They don't just ask you to eat differently, they ask you to kill off half your life. Stop eating this, cut this out, never touch this again. Don't eat after this time. Don't even go out. Don't trust yourself. Just follow the rules and be miserable enough. And maybe your body will finally cooperate. That's why I call them diets. It's in the name. That's what it feels like. Like you have to die to your routine, your culture, your schedule, your family dinners, your cravings, your joy, and even your common sense. And somehow we consider these diets healthy. And yeah, a lot of diets can work at first. I've done plenty. That's the part that confuses people. Sometimes you'll hear someone say, it worked for me, and I believe them. And a lot of times it will work in the beginning, but that's not the real question. The real question is, did it work for your real life, your lifestyle? Because if it only works when you're highly motivated, organized, not stressed, sleeping well, cooking every meal, and basically living in a fantasy version of yourself, then did it really work? Or did it just work temporarily? That's what I see all the time. Someone comes in and says, I've lost weight so many times before. And when they say that, I already know what is coming next. I just always gain it back. Now, they think the lesson is I don't have any discipline. But a lot of the time, that's not the lesson at all. The real lesson is that the plan was too intense to survive real life. That's a very different problem because people do not live in controlled environments. They live in the middle of jobs, kids, stress, bad sleep, birthdays, travel, hormones, bills, family pressure, and random Tuesdays they go out and maybe completely fall apart by the evening. A plan has to survive all of that. If it can't, then eventually the person is going to break the rhythm and the diet will collapse. And then comes the shame. That's the part I really hate because the person doesn't say, that plan didn't fit my life. They say, I failed again. I'll start tomorrow. No, the plan failed you. That's the important difference. A lot of diets are built on intensity. They're built on feeling dramatic. You start Monday, throw everything out, buy new groceries, make a bunch of promises to yourself and maybe your family, and suddenly you are a new person for maybe a week or two. And it feels exciting. The scale might drop fast. People notice you feel in control, and then life shows up. Stress shows up, hunger shows up, fatigue starts kicking in. Your kids get sick, work gets busy, you miss a workout or two, and you eat something off your plan. And now the whole thing that you worked for the 1 or 2 weeks or a couple days starts to feel fragile again. That's because it was fragile. Anything built on intensity usually is. The body does not love extremes the way the internet does. The body loves rhythm, routine. It likes predictability. It likes regular meals, regular sleep, steady movement, enough fluids, fuel, and recovery. And I think a lot of people know this deep down. They just get talked out of it by the noise they hear. They see someone online lose 20 pounds doing something extreme and think maybe I need to do that too. But what people don't really see is the rebound effect. They don't see what the person looks like 6 months later. They don't see the binge eating at night, the obsession around food, the constant mental stress, the low energy, the irritability, the food guilt, the cycle of being on and then completely off. That's the part nobody wants to post. Diets fail for biological reasons too, not just practical ones. When you cut out so much too fast, the body notices. It does not sit there quietly and say, wow, great job, keep going. It starts adjusting. Hunger gets louder. Thoughts about food increase. Your energy drops. Your mood changes. The body becomes more protective because it senses scarcity, not success. So then people say, Why am I thinking about food all day? Because your body is doing its job. Or they say, why do I feel out of control at night? Because you have been under fueling and fighting your own biology all day or ignoring it. Or they say, why did this diet work before but not now? Maybe because the body learns, stress changes, life changes, hormones can change, sleep changes. What felt doable at one point in your life may not fit now. Maybe you have extra responsibilities. That's why I always come back to this question: what actually fits your lifestyle? Not your fantasy lifestyle, your real one. Can you do it when you are tired? Can you do it when you're busy? Can you do it when you had a rough night? Can you do it when you go to a birthday party or go on a cruise? Can you do it without turning your food into a constant mental war? If the answer is no, then it probably doesn't matter how good the plan appears on paper. And here's something else that people need permission to say out loud: some diets work because they make eating so stressful that you temporarily eat less. That is not the same thing as healing. That is not the same thing as peace, and that is not the same thing as a body learning safety. A lot of people are chasing weight loss while slowly building resentment toward food, toward your body, toward the whole process, and resentment never lasts. The people who do better long term usually aren't the people with the most intense pain or plan. They're the people whose plan got boring in the best way. They know what breakfast roughly looks like. They know how to build a lunch. They need protein earlier and that hydration matters. They can feel when their sleep is off, which can cause their hunger to be louder. They know weekends also count, and they do not turn one meal into a 5-day spiral. That's that's exactly what can work for your lifestyle. When you don't make it too complicated, when you don't make excuses to say, "Hey, I did great 6 days. Let me eat one meal." And in America, I could tell you this, that one meal can offset your entire 6 days of hard work. And this is where I want to say something else clearly, because a lot of people have never heard it said this way. If a plan makes you feel more confused, more guilty, more obsessed, more extreme, and more disconnected from your body, that is not a healthy plan. Just because you lost some weight on it in the past doesn't mean it's going to fit your lifestyle again. Weight loss by itself is not the only definition of success. If your cravings are worse, if your patience is worse, if your relationship with food is worse, and your nights are chaotic, if you feel like you're one bad meal away from collapsing, something is way off. Health should make life feel steadier, not tighter. And yes, I know there are a lot of people listening right now thinking, okay, but I need structure or I'll eat everything. I get that. Structure is helpful. I'm not against structure. I'm against fake discipline that only lasts until real life walks in the room. Real structure supports your body, doesn't silence it. Real structure gives you enough protein that you're not starving at 4 o'clock in the morning or at night. Real structure helps you eat early enough that dinner doesn't turn into a rescue mission. The structure includes food you actually enjoy. Because if you hate every meal, you're not building a lifestyle. You're just enduring a phase. And phases end. That's why so many people keep restarting. They don't need a harder plan, they need a more honest one. An honest plan asks, what can I repeat? Not what can I survive for maybe about 14 days or maybe before my son or daughter's wedding. That is a totally different mindset and it changes everything. Now let's bring this back to something simple. Watch little kids for a second. Watch your kids, your nieces, your nephews. They don't do diets. They eat, move, play, get thirsty, get tired, sleep, wake up, do it again. Their body still talks clearly because it hasn't been buried under years of noise and food guilt and internet trends, as I mentioned last episode. We complicate what was originally simple. Then we wonder why we feel lost. That doesn't mean adults should eat like toddlers with the dinosaur nuggets every day. Little ones still trust their signals. We lose that. Then we spend years trying to get back through rules, when really, we need to relearn how to listen. That is why diets fail, not because humans are lazy, not because nobody wants it badly enough. They fail because they pull people away from their signals, away from their routine, their real life, and then blame the person when the whole thing falls apart. So, what actually works better? Something less dramatic, a way of eating that fits your schedule, meals that can satisfy you, protein early, fluids consistently, a little more awareness around your sleep and less obsession around perfection. A pattern you can come back to whenever life gets messy. That's what I want people to build. Not a diet, but a rhythm. Because rhythm can blend without breaking. Rhythm can survive a vacation. And this routine that you create can survive a rough week or a birthday party or a cruise. That's the real win. And if you are someone who has done 10 diets already and every single one started strong and ended in frustration, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not failing because you're weak. You're probably trying to live inside plans that were never designed for a human life or maybe your life. That should bring relief, not guilt. Because if the problem is not your character, then the answer is not more shame. The answer is find a better fit. And once people start living that way, something shifts. Food gets quieter, the panic gets quieter, the all or nothing cycles start to loosen. They stop asking, what's the perfect plan, and start asking, what can help me stay steady in this routine for life? That is a much better question to ask yourself. And it leads right into where we're going to talk about next. Because once people stop trying to force themselves into diets that don't fit their lifestyle, they usually can run into another problem: their own mind. The voice that says, see, you always do this. The voice that keeps blaming themselves. Episode 10 is about the voice in your head that keeps the cycle going. I'll see you there.